Hello, welcome to the brand called You, where we converse with the future. Today, the brand is Rakesh Kaul. Rakesh Kaul has been like an elder brother to me. He was the gold medalist from IIT Delhi several years before I went there. He was at Brown University, where he was one of the first people to study solar cells, and then he got his MBA from University of Chicago. He spent successful and very rapid rise in companies like Beatrice Food, Shackley, and then Finger Hut. Then he served as the CEO of Hanover Direct, which was a billion-dollar direct marketing and catalog firm. But not just that, he has spent many years now serving on boards of many different companies as advisor to one of the largest private equity firms in the world, as well as he has got a rich dimension on the creative arts side. We'll talk a little bit about his books. He has written two, Dawn, which is the newest book, and something that I completed last weekend. It's a fantastic book because it covers the core of Indian system on how do you really become an effective person and overcome unsurmountable obstacles. He has also written a book called The Last Queen of Kashmir, which is a history of the last female ruler, Queen of Kashmir from 14th century. Rakesh, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sandeep. And it's nice to be here with you. And thank you for that very warm introduction also. It's good to be here.
The first question I want to ask you, Rakesh, in your journey, you were one of the first few Indians who, outside the stereotypical path that Indians have followed through IT and technology, rose to the heights of American corporate life through your expertise in marketing. How was it to be a marketing leader an Indian-born marketing leader in corporate America in 80s, 90s, in that period?
So, I've always had a spirit of inquiry in my life. When I was growing up in India, the force for good was technology. The technocrat in those days was an aspirational role to have because they were seen as change agents that could bring India into modern times. So I went to IIT Delhi, I came to Brown University, and while I was at Brown, I learned that there was something equally powerful as technology, which was capitalism. Mm-hmm. And so even though I got admitted to Stanford and Harvard, I went to the temple of capitalism called the University of Chicago. And there I learned about free markets and economic theory and business and fundamentally all the arms of capitalism. But while I was at the University of Chicago, I learned that at the core of capitalism is this notion of the free consumer. It's the American consumer who exercises free choice that's really the engine of the economy, and the economy becomes a centerpiece of the political system, and the political system then is what grants you legal rights. And that America is a country with great rights. So that's what led to my career change into wanting to go into consumer marketing. And when I went into consumer marketing, I was the only person that I knew of in that space. And my very brilliant colleagues from the MBA program, they were sort of jumping jobs every 2 to 3 years. Mm-hmm. Because they were impatient, they were young, they wanted to make big money. I didn't do that. I built my career at Beatrice Foods with a simple mantra. I became known, my brand at that time was, he's the guy you give the biggest problem that the company is facing. And the title was created to put me into that role. So I just went from one position to the next position, but I was basically solving problems. If The problem that brought me into the company was one of energy conservation. Well, then that's the title I got. And if the problem was how do you grow, then I became title director of corporate development. So I went up that ranks. I was, I think, amongst the first 5 Indian CEOs. We cracked the glass ceiling, and I'm glad I went there because that sort of led me ultimately to also having a creative side to me.
We'll talk about your creative side in just a minute. But continuing that path of, you were, seems like very early on became a generalist. Whatever needed to be solved, you solved it. And I know since then you have become an investor advisor, a vice counsel to many entrepreneurs, businesses, and private equity funded companies. How do you decide which companies to participate in and which entrepreneurs to partner up with or bring into your network or fold? What are the characteristics you look for?
So, like real estate, it's the entrepreneur. I don't really at all look at the financial projections. I don't look at the business plan. And the reason is this. I've done a lot of innovation. And what you realize is innovation is basically, and this is just the Rakesh Kaul perspective, innovation is basically staggering from one near-death experience to another near-death experience. Right?
In terms of the risk that you're taking.
In terms of the risk that you're taking. And so early stage entrepreneurship, I don't play in the world of, the world where entrepreneurs go and get big checks where somebody writes 100 million. I don't, that's not my world. My world is basically an entrepreneur who's got a dream, who has expertise. So this dream is not a fantasy, but a dream, that's a vision that's based on knowledge, deep insight. And then I really look at the character. Does this person have the character that they will stick to it? All the investments I have made, these entrepreneurs, the kind of sacrifices they have made to pursue their dream, the kind of humility, the kind of commitment they have made. I'm in awe of each one of them. And then the other thing is, can I strike a good relationship with them? Because to mentor them, mentorship is a two-way process. It's not about any great insights or intelligence. It's about them having the trust in you that they'll come, they'll open up, and they're willing to use you as a sounding board. I'm not smarter than them, but the fact that they're willing to trust me and that I can in some way be a sounding board, that's important. And the third thing is, are they willing to learn and reinvent themselves? Because if an entrepreneur gets stuck, then the near death becomes death. But if the entrepreneur is willing to constantly reinvent themselves in the early stages, then success is assured. So that's what I look for. And so far it's worked very well.
Changing gears to the creative part now, you have used a term in your book, Granthika storyteller.
I'm a Granthika.
Yes.
I'm a Granthika, yeah.
What does that mean? And how did this journey start from being a corporate executive to investor, mentor, board member? How does it lead to being a storyteller or a Granthika?
I'll tell you a real life answer to that. We were at the home of a very successful Indian by the name of P.C. Chatterjee. And all the leaders of the Indo-American community were there because they were attending the wedding of a mutual friend of yours, his daughter. And these are all billionaires, very successful people. And we were all going around and they asked me, so what's next? Because I said to them, I want to run the second half of my life very differently than the first half. and they said, what is it about the second half that's going to be different than the first half? And I said, when I look at the first half, it was about conquering space. You want a bigger empire, you want to be global, but it's space. It's materialism in space. And so I want to switch, and now I want to conquer time. And I said, because they looked at me in the same way as to what does it mean to conquer time?
What does it mean to conquer
time? So I said, I went back and I looked at what is it that is the longest lived entity that you can create. And it's not endowments, much as people give endowments, and endowments are good. It turns out, surprisingly, at least in my case, what intrigued me was that the longest lived creations of human beings are stories. That the most ancient story is probably around 10,000 years old. And stories are the living consciousness that outlive everything else. And so it's not surprising that in Sanskrit, the term akshar, alphabet, is also synonymous with the term. The word is a term. So from that realization, now I said, oh my God, I have to become a storyteller. I don't know anything. I'm all right brain. Now I got to work on my left brain. But it's okay. Again, it's about when you have that spirit of wanting to reinvent yourself.
You reinvented to become
a Granthika.
And Granthika means a storyteller?
So it's very interesting. Until the advent of TV, you basically, in India, had Granthikas who traveled from village to village to village. Nobody knew the Ramayana, nobody knew the Mahabharata. The Granthikas were the ones who traveled, and they'd go to a village, they'd be given a place, they'd be fed food. But in the evening, when the farmers had done their work and there was a break time, they'd all gather under the tree. And under the peepal tree, the Granthika would then tell the stories.
I see.
And so I am the first Indian who writes in the English language, but I use Indian literary principles. So there are many great English authors, many far greater than me, but I'm the one who writes using Indian literary principles.
And now you've picked to tell the first two stories. First Kota Rani, which is in 14th century, and the next one, Dawn, which is set in 3000 AD.
Right.
Two stories, hundreds of years from today, either back or forward, and two female protagonists.
Yes.
Is there a connection? Why did you pick these two stories to tell?
So, Kashmir actually has the distinction that the word Sahitya was coined in Kashmir. Literature was coined in Kashmir. It was coined by the aesthetician Kuntaka. So Kashmir has had, among other things, two great traditions. One is called Kavya Itihasa, which is the history. And Kashmir has a distinction of having the longest written history anywhere in the world. The Raj Tarangani series, which starts with Kalhana, followed by Jona Raja, followed by Srivara, and then others. So it's a written record of the people that spans, a longer period of time than any other place in the world. Older than Judaic civilization, older than Japan. It's a fascinating thing. But more interestingly, it has another tradition which is called Shloka Katha, the story. So Kota Rani was my contribution in the Itihasa, and Dawn, and certainly we can talk a little bit more about why Dawn was in the Shloka Katha genre. Now, the reason I have picked two women characters is that it has nothing actually to do with gender, even though they are genders. In the Indian framework, the Hindu framework, for whatever reason, life energy was given the feminine gender, Shakti.
The Shakti.
So it was given a feminine gender, but we have as much Shakti as the women do. So it just happened to be a feminine thing. But interestingly, Kashmir's civilization was unique that women were in some ways superior to men. So it was not lip service that you're a goddess. I mean, Westerners will say you're a goddess too, but it was practical. Practical in the sense that children were known by their women.
By their maternal name.
By their women name. So for example, Ganesha would never be described as Shiva's son. Ganesha would be described as Parvati Putra. Okay, so that was sort of the first thing. Second, it had more queens that were sovereigns, not just wives of kings, but sovereigns than any other place on earth. And third, because of the Shakti thing, they were the messengers to higher truths. So you could not sit in a prayer without the woman next to you. The woman had to be next to you because she was your messenger to the higher truths. And I can go on and talk about other things. But so because of the significance of women and the feminine energy, I picked protagonists. And then, of course, women are beautiful, so it helps to have a character who's beautiful.
Okay. The other thing that's common in both these books is Kashmir. They are linked to Kashmir in some history, historical or future perspective.
Right.
The story of Kashmiri people, especially Kashmiri Hindus, has been one of, and you cover some of it in both books directly or indirectly, is being one of persecution.
Yes. I mean, in the last 500 years. Not 5,000, but 500.
500 years. In the breadth of what you have covered, that's been one of the themes. And it is also defining, in some sense, characteristics of last 20, 30 years. Has that created a particular mindset in Kashmiri Hindus in your mind? And I know you have helped a lot of them and you've been instrumental in helping them, particularly from US. Has that shaped the thinking of Kashmiri Hindus, and does it create a mindset like the Jewish nation has, which has also suffered a lot of persecution over time? And do you think that shapes their personalities and thinking now? In a positive way or a limiting way?
I would not compare the Kashmiri Pandits to the Jews, even though some do. I think there are lots of commonalities. In fact, one interesting commonality which I have written an article about is that in the Temple of Solomon, incense used to be burned regularly. It's called ketoret. And the formula of ketoret was laid out by Moses and is followed very religiously. And there are Jewish rabbis whose sole role through history has been to make the ketoret, which is the sacred incense.
The incense formula was given by Moses.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the interesting thing is that 1/3 of the by weight of the ketoret is a substance called kot. And at that time, it was only grown in Kashmir.
There's some linkage there between the people.
Yeah, so there are lots of commonalities. That's a separate topic we can talk about one day. A lot of commonality, but I don't think there are similarities. Because I think that for the Kashmiri Pandits right now, they are still, the modern contemporary Kashmiri Pandits, they're still in such a state of trauma. They're still not come to grips at what has happened. In fact, many of them just want to flee away. Many of them want to say, look, I found a home somewhere, I found security somewhere, I have a good life because I'm bright and I'm personable and I've been trained by my culture to be very adaptable. I just want to find happiness in that.
I don't want to rake up.
I don't want to rake up the past because it's too painful. And it really is very, very painful past in the recent times. It is just a past of such horror and the world doesn't really know it. I mean, most people would meet a Kashmiri Pandit and say, okay, these are nice people, they're non-violent, they're bright, their kids are great. wives are beautiful. So that's the image, but nobody will ever get a Kashmiri Pandit to open up and say, tell me, what was your journey? That conversation, even their fellow colleagues won't have with them because they see a symbol of what they would like to be. They don't know the horror. For example, if I was to just describe my family's life history, people would say, oh my God, so this was part of your family memory? What horror.
Would you care to share something?
Yeah, I can spend a few minutes. I mean, I could just talk a little bit about my family history and why I sort of gravitate towards supporting entrepreneurs. I mean, my father grew up in a middle-class household. Not much money, some land, profession that kept them alive. He was a lawyer. And for whatever reason, I don't know why, he was, the British resident in Kashmir thought he was just a great guy. And so the British resident recommended him and he got admitted to the Imperial College of Science and Technology. The first Kashmiri, I don't know about Indians, but certainly the first Kashmiri to have that honor. And nobody had any money, but nobody cared because everybody knew that my father would go around town and people would chip in to send the son
to this prestigious
thing.
Institution.
And so, I mean, when my mother died, I went through my letters and I have that letter of admission from the Imperial College of Science and my father. So he got then a follow-up letter and it said, Mr. Kaul, we're delighted obviously to admit you. You received that notification, but the school started. Why don't you come next year? And then you can prepare because you'll have to go to Bombay and then take the steamer from Bombay to London. So that made evident sense. My father thought that he'd get his act together. Well, that never came because next year the tribal raiders came. And so my family decided that at least one person had to be outside the state in case they had to flee. My father was the youngest boy. He came, he landed in the railway station, and he had no money. He had no money. And somebody saw this young man, asked his story and said, come work in my shop. They figured he's a good-looking kid, work in my shop, I'll pay you some money, I'll give you food and you can sleep. You know, in those Indian shops, they have a little space upstairs.
Yeah.
And that's what my father did for 3 months. And he got no money. And then he quickly figured out that this shopkeeper was basically going to make him
Taking
an
advantage,
indentured slave, right? Freedom,
Yeah.
he works, but that's it, no money.
Yeah.
So eventually my father left. Fast forward, my family from both sides, we had a lot of lands. In they did the Land to Tiller Act. They took away all of the lands. That went away. Then they passed a rule that the majority in Kashmir Valley is the minority under the Indian minority law. So now none of these people could get educated in the valley. So all of my family members had to go out of the valley to get educated because they couldn't get jobs there, they couldn't get educational investment there. Then in 1990 came the final blow.
Where there was mass exodus.
There was mass exodus. And so, virtually no Indian really understands the magnitude of genocide windfall profits that occurred. Nobody understands that. There were maybe about 100,000 family, maybe 400,000 people who fled, maybe 100,000 homes. Today, even if I ascribe a value of 2.5 crores, because you and I are business people, and that's on the low side for a home in Kashmir, Srinagar with land, everybody has. I had 2.5 crores. That's a 2.5 lakh windfall genocide profit in today's terms. 2.5 lakh crores today, $35 billion. They took away 1.5 lakh acres of land in the Land to Tiller estate. Even if I say that's 500 rupees per square foot, that is $35 billion. But every Kashmiri Pandit has that story.
And
So it's understandable why they want to put the trauma behind them and never talk about it.
but when you put the trauma behind, it also makes it distant and unrecognizable to the new generation and to people. So I think with time, maybe hopefully acceptance will come and of this is the past, and then you can deal with it. But that's
So my basic message in both my novels is that the worst will bring out the best in you. And so the renaissance and resurgence of Kashmiri Pandits around the world is the greatest miracle of humanity, greatest story of humanity. And in both my novels, I do celebrate the Kashmir that in the 18th and 19th century, before the mess of India and Kashmir started, Kashmir was described not by me, not by Indians, not by Hindutvatis, but by the best European scholars as the cradle of human civilization. I mean, whether it was health with Ayurveda, Charaka did it, Shushruta was the surgeon, whether it was yoga with Patanjali, whether it's Sanskrit grammar with Panini, Pingala did binary numbers 1800 years before the West knew about it, Fibonacci series. When it comes to the aesthetics, which Sheldon Pollock says is India's greatest contribution to humanity, Bharata did Natya Shastra, that was followed by Abhinav Gupta Rasa theory. Indians don't understand the technology, the biochemistry of rasa. They just don't know what a potent force it is. I explored that in Dawn. Then when it comes to music and combinatorial theory, Sharang Dev, whose Sangeeta Ratnakar is the textbook in South India today, he's a Kashmiri. I can go on. That civilization, in my words, was that Kashmir Valley was to humanity in the first millennium what Silicon Valley is in the second millennium. But there's a key difference. The technologies of Silicon Valley become obsolete every moment. The technologies of Kashmir Valley are turned.
so. All the names that Rakesh just mentioned to our listeners, when you read the book, you'll see how he has weaved each one of them through a mechanism of story. Dawn visits Patanjali, Charak, all of these people, Bharat, with the stories, and picks up the core elements of these capabilities. And that's how she defeats 5 billion men.
Yes.
You want to talk about how does one overcome those kinds of insurmountable odds and conquer?
Sure. So, every human being is engaged in a life quest, consciously or unconsciously. You're on a life quest. You have certain desires. You're on a life quest, and you're going to encounter insurmountable challenges. And how do you solve these challenges? So, what I have done in this novel is I have picked the ultimate Sarvanash, the end of the universe, right? You can't have anything in your life that is more horrific than that the whole universe is going to end. Life is going to end. So I picked that and said, let's stress test that scenario. And so the counter to that is basically what we in India call life energy. What is life energy? And what are the components of this life energy? And there's an interesting proverb in Kashmir that sort of lays the foundation of the story. And the proverb is something that may surprise you, Sandeep. The proverb is, better that the mind be blind than the way of life be blind.
Be blind, yes. I read that, yes.
Right? So we don't attach, mind is necessary, but it's not sufficient. So we look for things beyond the mind. And so there's consciousness, which is considered to be the lamp that lights up the mind. But at the end of the day, for the common man, it came down to stories. And this novel is written in the Adbhut Rasa. It's written in the Wonder Rasa. And the reason it's written in the Wonder Rasa is that it's supposed to startle you. When you read this novel, you're going to get startled. You're going to sort of wonder what's going on, right? But the whole idea is that when you get startled, and that's why I tell everybody not have a good day. I say have a wonderful day, because I want to wish you a wondrous experience. And why? Because when you go in a state of wonder, you free up your mind. The moment you free up your mind, as the ancients discovered, you are able to now find possibilities. And so by visiting all these people, Dawn is able to create possibilities, to see possibilities, and to make the possible happen. And that's how she defeats this. And so I think the story is one that will teach you at the end the three simple things. If you practice them, it's the Niti formula. 3 words. The Niti formula that will equip you to run your life in a certain way where you can make anything possible and you can overcome any challenge.
So the 3-word formula.
I want you to read it. See, if I give it away,
Yes.
then it's just words. But if you actually read the story and understand the biochemistry and the wonder that it creates in you, then it'll embed itself inside you. And then it's a change agent.
And the book is so rich and so dense. It's a book that I've felt after a long time that single reading is not going to do justice. I need to go back and read it a few different times to really absorb what have you packed in there. It's like one of those densely packed goodie box that you have to keep opening and peeling. There is genetics, there is quantum mechanics, there is the central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. There is rasa science. There is so much that you are packed in.
But there's all mostly great stories, including the oldest joke known to humanity. But yes, you're right. It's like any great science fiction movie. If you go see a great science fiction movie, a lot escapes you.
Yes.
And then you got to go back and say, I got to see this movie away.
Yes.
And that's the secret to reading Dawn. Just see it like a movie. Just let it move at fast speed. You see it, you just enjoy the experience. Don't get initially too trapped into analysis or sort of understanding everything. You don't need to understand, you just need to experience. Experience it like you would a science fiction movie. And then you can come back and revisit.
I'm going to change gears now and talk a little bit about how you're bringing some of these culture and stories beyond your own writing. I know you've also been instrumental in helping set up IACC in IAAC.
Indo-American Arts Council
in New York.
Your wife, Anu, is a board member and a very valued board member.
Yes, and she is very passionate about it as well.
Yeah.
What are the goals and why is it important? Aren't there enough opportunities for us to absorb culture in New York City already?
The answer I would say is there are 0 opportunities. But let me again give you another proverb which is fascinating as to how, it's a Kashmiri proverb if you permit me. It says, culture is a lifeboat that you carry within you, even as it carries you within it.
Yes, it's in the book. I saw that,
Right? So, how many people truly carry this lifeboat within them and it carries them? I have been shocked that actually very few of us do that. Yes, we get together with our friends. Yes, we may go to our faith, depending on whatever faith we belong to. But culture, no. Music, drama, poetry, literature, dance, fashion, art. No, our cultural literacy is actually, at least for me, was 0. And I would say, don't take it the wrong way. It's not a criticism, it's just an objective thing. So at IAC, we focus on the mission of inspiring, engaging, and elevating. And through that comes empowerment. And so we do the biggest film festival, the biggest literary festival, biggest dance festival, biggest music festival. And it supports the arts, it supports the artists, it creates experiences that bind us and make us who we are. So I want everybody to be part of the ISE journey.
Yeah, and those who are watching, please go and see all the events that they put together. Very quickly, rapid fire questions. What do you prefer, biryani or burger?
Biryani.
Okay. What is better, a walk on the beach or party in Times Square?
A walk on the beach.
What would you rather drive in, a Ferrari or a Rolls Royce?
Neither, honestly. Neither is my type.
No, neither is your type.
Neither.
What is your type?
I would probably opt in today's day and age for a Tesla.
What is the brand called Rakesh Kaul in as few words as possible?
Oh, is one word satisfactory? So if you check my Facebook, I use the word questor to describe myself. Questor is a Latin term. It means somebody who has a spirit of inquiry. It was also an official title in Rome for people who were charged with responsibility for financial matters. It was also a term used for people who were warriors and would lead military campaigns. So two famous questors that you know, Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. I consider myself a questor.
On that note, thank you so much for joining and sharing these wonderful stories. May your journey as Granthika take you ever forward and we hear more and more of our heritage.
Thank you, Sandeep, for having me. I'm delighted.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You podcast. Be sure to visit tbcy.in to join the conversation, access show notes, and discover fantastic bonus content. You can follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Simply search for The Brand Called You. Thank you and see you next week.